Back in September, I did a seminar on self-awareness, and I talked very specifically about how there are steps to self-awareness. And one step is to really acknowledge your status or acknowledge your state, right? Or acknowledge yourself, right? Where are you? From the standpoint of whatever it is, you could acknowledge by saying, and it doesn't matter what the thing is. Let's say we're talking about health, for example. Acknowledge that you are overweight. Acknowledge that you don't like how you feel about yourself. Acknowledge that the relationships in your life aren't what you want them to be. Acknowledge it. That has to be the first step. You have to be able to say to yourself, here is the situation. And a lot of times we can't do that because we don't like ourselves. We don't love ourselves for sure. We don't trust ourselves and we don't know ourselves. The word inside of acknowledge is know. Knowledge. Know yourself. And I think so much about how I know myself and got to know myself because I had to get to know myself. Growing up in a narcissistic, abusive, neglectful environment. Yeah, I had plenty of food to eat. I had clean clothes. I had hot water. I had all of what looked like the comforts of a great childhood. But my mother was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, verbally abusive. And she enabled my stepfather's abuse of me as well. And this episode is not about abuse or overcoming abuse. It's about the acknowledgement of yourself, your life circumstances, whether it's your ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, whether it's things that happen to you at the workplace, whether it's things that's happened to you in different relationships, but it's about acknowledging your own experiences and the impact that they have on you. So it's 2025, and the theme I have for this year for myself is results over resolutions. And I even did a workshop about that back in December, where I talked very specifically about how overcoming procrastination is key if you want to achieve results. And overcoming procrastination really starts with understanding procrastination and the root of it. A lot of it is based in perfectionism. If I can't do it right, I don't want to do it at all. It's based in that all or nothing thinking, right? But when you can acknowledge anything, it's your first step to really being able to do something about it. If you can acknowledge something, then you can develop a desire for change. So although I have been a healthy eater, comparatively, especially compared to probably 85% of Americans, I've been a healthy eater since I was a kid because I always knew that eating fresh vegetables was important. Eating things from nature was important. And I always did that, especially when I had control of it. And all the times in my life that I've been single, meaning not have a man telling me what to do in my life, I've had the most successful parts of my life in terms of being able to be the most physically, mentally, and financially healthy. Every time I was in a relationship with any man, they drained me mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially because I had to spend money dealing with them and their bullshit, their credit, their bills, their nonsense. And only when I've been alone have I thrived. And I want to take this conversation to leadership and really want people to understand or to understand that In order to be an effective leader, you have to be able to acknowledge the truth. You have to be able to acknowledge the current situation. So in the case of your health, if you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see every day, if you look in the mirror and you don't like your body, that's a great place to start, because then you can start being honest with yourself, and now you can assess some details. So if you look in the mirror and if you can just acknowledge, I don't like something about my life, my finances, my relationship, my body, my living situation, whatever it is, then you can start to do something about it. And the way you start to do something about it is by assessing the situation. But you can't do that if you're not honest. And so many people are not honest with themselves. And if you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anybody else. You have to be honest with yourself. So I've been a healthy eater. However, I still have been a person that was consuming other things that were less healthy or that were contributory to my weight not being what I want it to be. Now, over the last 4 years, or since COVID, since 2020, I've lost probably 45 pounds, maybe almost 50 pounds. And I have about another 10 to go to really get to my ideal, healthy, and goal weight. And for a lot of people, they might say, well, 125 pounds, that's skinny. It's not skinny for somebody that's only 5'3". We are a fat nation. 50% of our kids are obese and almost 80% of adults. It's ridiculous. We have said that a healthy weight, a healthy BMI is 30, and it's not true. But the way that has happened is because the food industry, the drug industry, the medical industry, the beverage industry, the pharma industry, all them industries, with the help of the advertising and the news media, have gotten us to believe that you can be healthy at any size. You can, lead other people no matter what you do. You can, have a happy life and be on a bunch of drugs and be distracted by things. And none of that is true. What's true is we have a staggering lack of self-awareness. And this staggering lack of self-awareness helps us to be snowed and bullshitted and abused and misinformed and misled by various entities out there. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, well, the food industry, they're just trying to make money. They're not trying to harm us. If they know the things that harm us, then they are trying to harm us. Oh, the politicians, they're just doing the best thing they can. It's because of dirty money in politics. Well, politicians, they're the ones who approve the dirty money, right? If you don't think that Supreme Court justices are politicians, you're wrong, right? Oh, the medical industry, the doctors, their hands are just tied. Yeah, but they too can break out and develop some self-awareness. Why are doctors fat? Would you go to a dentist that had bad teeth? If you walked into the dentist's office and you saw your dentist had a missing tooth or yellow teeth or teeth that looked like they had plaque and they didn't look healthy, would that really be a dental office that you would feel comfortable in? If you went to a doctor and your doctor was morbidly obese, would you really think they know what they're doing? I've never had a fat doctor. I went to an OB one time, OBGYN, and she was overweight and she just did not look healthy at all. I didn't hear anything she was saying. I just kept on thinking to myself, you can't even take care of yourself. You got education, you have money, and you have privilege, societal privilege, and you can't take care of yourself. You don't give a crap about me and you can't help me at all. And when I think about the self-awareness that person probably didn't have, right? I think about the self-awareness that most leaders don't have. And the reasons most leaders don't have self-awareness is because of their power. And because everybody under them is afraid of them. And if you're afraid of somebody's reaction, you're not going to elicit that reaction if you can help it. So you're going to walk around on eggshells. You're going to walk around being inauthentic. You're going to walk around just doing a bare minimum to keep that person from getting pissed. I have a lot of experience working in environments with leaders who had no self-awareness. In fact, my very first job that I had at the age of 15 was working for a CEO. His name was Mr. Parker, and he used to smoke like a fiend. He was always going outside to smoke. And he was thin as a rail. Like, I don't think Mr. Parker weighed more than 120 pounds. He probably was like 5'8". He was skinny. And I remember when, I had to give him some bad news about the way that his operations, was suffering in these different areas that I didn't know about until I got there. And I didn't know about until I tried to incorporate some technology. And I remember he just would go outside and smoke every time I said something. And I remember thinking like, wow, that is a very unhealthy coping mechanism, And I'm sure that Mr. Parker is dead by now because he was in his 50s in 1980. So that means he had to be 90 years old at this point and smoking, 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I can't imagine that he would still be alive. But I just remember him having a staggering lack of self-awareness. I remember how my grandfather was this cruel person, always saying mean and hurtful things to people, calling people names and stuff. And he had a staggering lack of self-awareness about how what he thought was a sense of humor. I know now that was a masking technique, but he didn't have self-awareness. Remember that both my grandparents were alcoholics, 3 aunts alcoholics. My mom was a prescription drug addict, so that was a different type of addiction. But like just watching all of these people in my personal life and professional life even, but just watching people with no self-awareness just do harmful things to themselves and others and nobody ever saying anything. I never wanted to be like that. And thankfully, one of the things that happened to me growing up in the home that I did was that my mom was always criticizing me. She was always telling me about myself, my hair, my face, my skin, my weight, my whatever, and being hyper critical of me. So I became hyper aware of myself. Now, a lot of us, of course, right? I think something like 60% of our behaviors are subconscious. We don't even realize them. But the more aware of yourself and the more criticism you're able to metabolize, the much easier it is to have self-awareness and the much easier it is to be in relationships that are healthy. The most important relationship is the one that you have with yourself. And if you don't like yourself, if you don't love yourself, know yourself, and trust yourself, I call it KLT, knowledge, love, and trust of self. If you don't have that down pat, your KLT, you don't have that down pat, the relationships in your life are not genuine. The people in your life are walking around on eggshells, not saying certain things to you because they know that you're not going to have a good response to it. They know you either going to fly off the handle, get pissed, or punish them in some way. And a lot of those traits and characteristics, you learned them from childhood. But if you're going to be a leader, leadership requires knowing yourself, being aware of your triggers, your responses, and your reactions. Being aware of how you show up, being aware of how you are in a space, physically, emotionally, verbally. And if people in your life can't tell you the truth about anything, if you can't talk about difficult topics, the relationships you have aren't genuine. And you're suffering. The people around you are suffering. And the only way to do something about that, it starts with acknowledgement. It starts with acknowledgement. And I want to challenge you today in this episode of the Radical Change Leadership Podcast. I want to challenge you this day to take some steps. The first step I want you to is acknowledge the power dynamics in your life. Acknowledge the power dynamics in your life. Are you a parent? That's a power dynamic. If you're a man and you have relationships with women, that's a power dynamic. If you're an adult and you have relationships with children, those are power dynamics. If you're a boss, you have employees, whether it's your own company or somebody else's company, it's a power dynamic. Acknowledge your power dynamic and then assess. Assess the impacts of your behaviors in these power dynamics. Assess these power dynamics. Can people come up to you and tell you anything? Can people ask you questions? How do you metabolize communication inside of these dynamics? Assess how you metabolize communications inside of these dynamics. Are your kids afraid of you? Does everybody in your home walk around on eggshells? I am a coach. I'm also a consultant, but I am a coach, and I've been coaching leaders for more than 40 years. I've coached families, parents, but I've coached a lot of leaders. And leaders are people who make decisions for themselves, but definitely for other people, whether it's around big things. You know, you have whole ass departments of people that you manage, whole ass companies, processes, teams, or whether, it's just you as a single mom managing, your home and you have one kid. You as a leader have such a tremendous responsibility to first be the best version of yourself. And that is something that a lot of people don't do. Most people are not trying to be the best version of themselves because society has told you that you're fine. You might weigh 350 pounds and be wheezing and can't walk up a flight of steps, but society has told you, oh, you can have health at every size. No, you can't. You cannot have health when you can't breathe, when you can't walk. And one of the reasons that the COVID pandemic impacted us so greatly is because that we are so metabolically unhealthy. They kept on talking about comorbidities, but they didn't say if you're fat, if you eat processed food, if you eat a bunch of sugar. And they just said, oh, if you have asthma, then COVID will be worse. No, COVID, even people that are so-called healthy got COVID. Oh, maybe it didn't last as long. I know so many affluent, healthy, so-called healthy people that got COVID. I'm like, why did all these people get COVID? I didn't get COVID. And I'm older than most of these people. I know kids that got COVID. Why did these kids get COVID? Because they were metabolically unhealthy. And that is something, right? Our health, being fat, being overweight, being unhealthy is something that people are allowed to maintain this level of unawareness because, oh, if you talk about it, then you're fat shaming people. You don't have to be ashamed of being fat because being fat is an adaptation to this unhealthy environment. To not be fat, you have to be vigilant. To not be fat, you have to be focused. To not be fat, you can't be eating the regular American diet. The regular American diet is 60 to 70% ultra-processed foods. That means most of the food is made in factories, is made from chemicals. It's not really food. Only something like 10% of Americans are not eating ultra-processed foods. That's the people like me that's eating whole natural food, focused on. I try not to eat meat. I only eat meat, chicken every once in a while if I go over somebody's house and they cook it for me and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll eat it just to taste a little bit. I only eat refined starches and carbs if somebody cooks it. And now my new strategy is to not even indulge in that. Like my new strategy, if somebody invites me over to dinner, I'm bringing a salad and I'm eating that first. I'm going to be like, oh, hey, I'll bring a salad because I have to have my vegetables. I have to. I eat a salad every day. I cook for myself. I buy fresh fruits and vegetables. I make salad dressings out of nuts and seeds and herbs and spices. And I make my own soups. Like, I want to be healthy. But that's because for me, that's important. For me, that's what I want to do. And for me, my self-awareness in why I couldn't get below, and stay below 150 pounds. Like, I was hovering at 149, 148, 146. Then I was back up to 152, 155. Then I was back down to maybe 143. Then I was back up to 150, 155, 153, 152, 148, 149. Why? Because I had to be aware, make myself aware of what in my diet, what in my stress life, what in my sleeping life is contributing to this weight. Well, I was still drinking things like kombucha, which has a lot of sugar, was still making, some smoothies every now and then, which literally is bypassing all of the nutrition, not even getting the nutrition, because the way we get nutrition is our saliva mixing with the nutrients in the food. I had to be aware and get awareness around those things. I had to also be really aware and get awareness around my sleep and my stress, because cortisol, that hormone, it causes weight gain, just like insulin causes weight gain. So how did I get some self-awareness? I got some education, and I listened to some things that maybe were a little boring, maybe was a little outside of my normal scope of what I like to consume. But it was really important to me to become the most healthy version of myself, physically, emotionally, psychologically, relationally, socially. Like, it's important to be the best person I could be. So I have been working on my mental health for years. I've been working on my physical health, but not making it as much of a priority. My diet, yes, like eating good stuff. Like, I won't eat shit out of boxes, bags, and cans, right? Specifically, without knowing what's in it. And without making sure that I know what it is. And that is something that I do purposefully. That's something that I do intentionally. That's something I do consistently. But a lot of people, we don't do things intentionally and consistently. That's where self-awareness comes in. To be self-aware is something that you need to do with intention. You have to make it a goal. You have to make it a practice. And to do that means you have to have a desire for it. The root of all change is desire. All of it. The root of all change is desire. And until you desire to be the best version of yourself, until you desire health in the various aspects, you're not going to achieve it. Now, the other part to self-awareness is to really assess yourself. Once you start paying attention to who you are, really start looking at, what does this mean? Who am I really? And do you like the person that you see? If you don't love who you are, you might have flaws, but do you love the hell out of this person? Because I'm going to tell you, if you don't take care of yourself physically, you don't really love yourself. If you don't take care of yourself emotionally, you don't really love yourself. If you're not paying attention to what goes in your body and how you treat yourself, if you're not in relationships that are healthy for you, you don't really love yourself. And I'm going to challenge you today to use self-awareness as a tool. So what can you do to be self-aware? Here are some steps. There's some different aspects of self-awareness that I want to talk about. Emotional awareness, your thoughts and beliefs, your behavior patterns, your relationships and social interactions, and then also values and priorities. But specifically today, I want to talk about relationships because of the power dynamic situation. And the first question is, what role do you play in group settings? If you're the leader, how are you leading? What is your typical response if somebody gives feedback that might challenge your competence or your authority. When you give negative feedback, do you focus on a behavior or a person? Do you avoid giving negative feedback because you're concerned about the consequences? And how often do you check in with people to see how they receive feedback? If you're a leader of a team or of a family or an organization, do you seek proactive feedback? Do you ask people specific questions about you? What can I do better as a boss, as a friend, as a parent? Have you ever asked your child that question? Have you ever asked your coworkers, what could I do better to show up for you as a colleague? Are you aware of the power that you have in your relationships? I think very much about a client that I have. And this client has such little self-awareness. And even in our sessions, it's like they are so fragile that I don't even want to say anything to them that is going to damage that, because I know it's going to keep them from coming back. So, I let them talk about what they want to talk about, because I know that they can't handle anything. And I know that because of the things that they share about conversations that they have. For example, I one time my client said that their wife now knows how much they get done in a day, and that prior to them shadowing or working together, that they thought that they didn't do any work all day long. And I thought to myself, so much projection. You have no self-awareness. You think that your wife doesn't do shit all day long. That's why you think she thinks you don't do shit all day long. That is your projection. But I didn't say that because I know that this person cannot handle anything at all. They cannot handle any criticism because they will not address their wounds. So they come and they talk about their wife. They talk about their kids. But they don't ever talk about themselves. They talk about, nonsense. Like it's their time to just gab. And I'm like, okay, well, when you're ready to do some work on yourself, let me know. Because when you're ready to do some work on yourself, we can have some conversations that I'm sure you've never had with anyone. Because if you've had these conversations with any therapist worth their salt, and if you've had any kind of situation where, any coach or, person that you work with can feel like they can talk to you about it, then they would have. And you would be a different person now because you'd have some self-awareness. I think about like all the personal trainers that I had at the gym. And these personal trainers never saying, that weight is 80% what you eat. It's 80% diet. And, exercise is literally like 20%. And you can be at a healthy weight and not exercise, formal exercise, do, body weight exercise and keep yourself active, right? People that are thin in other cultures, they're not going to the gym 90 minutes a day. They just live in active lifestyles, right? I don't go to the gym. I work out at home, but I stay active. I cook, I clean, I walk, right? I do my dynamic movements and stretching and stuff like that. But I'm not at the gym. I'm never going to waste money at a gym again. Never, ever, ever. Now, do I go to spas because they have saunas and steam rooms and stuff? But I'm not going to waste money at a gym. If somebody invites me, hey, come work out with me at the gym, okay. I'll come work out with you at the gym, but I'm going for the spa and the sauna and the cold plunge, that kind of thing. I'll spend a day at a, I'll spend a day at a plunge at a place where I can do cold plunge and sauna and infrared and steam room and, Himalayan salt rooms and stuff. I'll do that. But I'm not going to go to the gym, and I'm definitely not going to pay a trainer to make me exercise, because the key to being healthy is my diet. It's my diet. And every time I get around somebody who goes to the gym all the time and they're at their same weight, they got their same body fat, they got their same this, they got their same that. Yeah, they might have cardiovascular fitness, but they're still overweight because they don't want to change their diet. And most people don't want to have that conversation. Most people don't want to have the conversation that says, yeah, you're poisoning yourself with all this sugar, this alcohol, and this ultra-processed food. Yeah, it may be faster. It may be more convenient. But at the end of the day, do you want to be sick? At the end of the day, you want to be taking medicine? At the end of the day, you want to be unhealthy? Nah, I'd rather cook. I'd rather cook. I'm going to have some clients that I have to travel to see. And so I was figuring out for myself, how am I going to pack my food? And then I'm like, oh, duh. I'm going to use my 32-ounce mason jar to put my salad. I'm going to use an 8-ounce mason jar to put my salad dressing. I'm going to use another 32-ounce mason jar to put my drink, right? I make these different tonics with different herbs and spices like ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, spearmint and eucalyptus, or elderberry, dandelion and ginger or whatever. But I'm going to pack my little case, my little lunchbox with my stuff in it. And I'm going to be able to maintain my own diet, my own nutritional needs. Because I know that I have enough awareness to know that either I'm going to pick up, I could pick up some unhealthy habits and begin making excuses for myself. But in order to continue to support my habit and to have the life I want and to eat the food I want and to get the nutrition I want, that means I have to make my own food. Now, does that mean I don't go out to dinner? Hell no. I go out to dinner at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. But guess what? I pick the restaurant and I make sure the restaurant has food something that I want to eat. The last time I went out a couple weeks ago, not even last week, whenever it was, I picked the restaurant and I was able to have Brussels sprouts as my appetizer and a salad as my dinner. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. My dinner companions had burgers and fries. And this restaurant had a lot of things. They had black cod, they had hanger steak, they had, of course, chicken, they had different salads, they had pasta. I had what I wanted, which was a salad with a really nice lemon dressing. And I had Brussels sprouts. They shared in the Brussels sprouts. I probably ate 60% of the Brussels sprouts. And they had their burgers and fries. And after I had my salad, I was maybe 70% through eating my salad, which was really big. I had maybe 6 French fries from my friend's plate. They tasted good. And all I could think is, I'm glad I didn't have these first. But I still ate them and I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed the heck out of my dinner. I had one drink that I had the whole time. And my dinner companions, one of them had 3 drinks. One of them had 2 drinks. One person had alcoholic drinks. The other person had non-alcoholic drinks, or what they call mocktails. I'm fine. But if I'm going to be traveling during the day and I don't eat early in the morning, I usually don't eat my first meal till 12, 1, 2, or 3, sometimes even 4 o'clock. I need to have food. I need to be prepared to be able to feed myself and to be able to eat what I know is going to be healthy, not to be able to have to, at the last minute, try to find a salad. I have enough self-awareness to know that if I want to be of a healthy 125 pounds with 20 pounds of body fat and a BMI of, 20 or 21 or whatever, that means I need to eat healthy every day. Every day. That doesn't mean I can't have a glass of wine now and then, or a cocktail now and then, or a couple of french fries now and then. But it's not part of what's my regular diet. I used to love kombucha. Kombucha has sugar. Yeah, it has a bunch of probiotics and healthy stuff, but it has sugar. And I don't want to be consuming liquid sugar. So when I have a drink, yeah, I may have a glass of red wine, or I may have some sort of whiskey drink or whatever. But I'm also not going to have it on an empty stomach. I'm going to have food in my stomach first, and my kind of food, something healthy. So some vegetables that get in my stomach first, and then I can put that alcohol in. And at least the alcohol is being absorbed by something. No, not french fries. No, not eating bread first. I'm going to eat vegetables first. And if I'm going somewhere and I'm going to be doubtful that there's going to be vegetables there, then guess what? I'm going to eat vegetables first before I leave, or I'm going to take some vegetables. I spent Thanksgiving with some friends, and I brought roasted vegetables. I brought roasted cauliflower and roasted broccoli, and I think I brought a salad or something. But I brought what I could eat, so that worst case scenario, I would be able to eat and enjoy my time and not be looking at all the food like, oh, I'm not going to eat that. Oh, I'm not going to eat that. Now, did I have a couple pieces of turkey? Yes, I did. Did I have some turkey gravy? Yes, I did. Did I have some mashed potatoes? Yes, I did. But before I had any of that, I had a bunch of vegetables. And I ate some vegetables at home before I even left the house, so that I would already have good stuff in my body for that day. So when I think about the self-awareness, right, that it took me to get to this point, it wasn't easy, but for me it was necessary. And it started with a desire, the desire to be healthy. And whether your desires and your goals are around your health or around relationships, it starts with self-awareness. I want to invite you to ask yourself questions about self-awareness. I want to invite you to meditate. I want to invite you to journal. I want to invite you to get mindful. I want to invite you to get real with yourself. Radical change leadership is about getting to the root of you, and then growing, learning, and being empowered to make all the changes that you want to make with yourself and in yourself. It has to start there before you can expect any change outwardly. If you don't know yourself, love yourself, trust yourself, like yourself, care for yourself, if you're not your own number one star player, if you're not your own hero, your own champion, you cannot be the hero, the champion, the leader of anyone else. So today I want to invite you to lead via self-awareness. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with your health, your mental health, your physical health, your relational health, your financial health, your digital health, your relationships with alcohol, food, and people, all kinds of substances. Your relationships are key to self-awareness. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to us getting together on another edition of Radical Change Leadership. Take care.